So he took a hit to the head after giving himself up on a slide in the second quarter, but no penalty was called on Redskins linebacker Trent Murphy. Instead, Newton was the one who drew a flag for taunting when he flipped the ball at Murphy after rising from the turf. Here's Cam after the game.
That just can't happen on my part. You know, I just have to let the referees, you know, do their job. And I thought it was a questionable hit, but yeah, I can't. You know, I can't throw the ball at a person. I know that's against the rules too. So.
Did the referee do his job?
Sir?
Did the referee do his job?
Next question. In a position like that, you know, everyone. I mean, obviously I couldn't run to the sideline. I was sliding, and you know, I'm not going to beat the dead horse, man. So I just can't retaliate in that way. I'm better than that. I know I am, and you know, I can't jeopardize that type of play for my team.
Serious hat right there. The game referee, Walt Coleman, said after the game that he saw Cam slide late and the defender went over the top. He did not see any forcible contact with the head. Max, how do you feel about this?
First of all, that's a terrible hat. Like, can we just say what it is?
It's so bad.
It's ugly in any universe, including like Alice in Wonderland. That is terrible.
It's important to mention that he felt the need to wear the outfit, possibly the hat with it, because he said that he was paying tribute to Craig Sager.
Yes, but Craig Sager doesn't wear those hats.
I know that. That's what he told Lisa Salters. That's what he told Lisa Salters.
And along these lines,
I'm just saying, look, this is important.
Cam, I bring this up when Cam is the subject nowadays.
Cam.
Right.
Because like A-Rod, Cam seems so disingenuous at times. He seems so uncomfortable in his own skin, he makes you uncomfortable in yours watching him. He seems as though everything he says is calculated to create an effect in the listener instead of just telling you what he feels. And maybe the NFL is designed in part to dissuade you from saying what you really feel, but there are players who come off as much more genuine than Cam.
Okay.
That said, and even if he complains about it and the refs don't like him, justice is supposed to be blind. That was helmet to helmet, cut and dried. Should have been a flag. And then the fact that he gets angry about it, rightfully, and complains, and then he gets called for it, that's messed up. I mean, whether or not he wears ridiculous hats, which he does, whether or not he's disingenuous, which he seems to be to me, whether or not he complains and the refs don't like him, fine, I'm willing to accept that. That's got nothing to do with the way they're supposed to call the game on the field. And it looks to me, maybe it was an honest mistake, but it looks to me like the refs have it out for him.
I don't disagree that there seems to be unfavorable treatment coming his way from time to time. There are missed calls. Now, I've spoken to people in the NFL office. They talked about how they analyze these officials every week. But just because the NFL puts forth its due diligence in dissecting, monitoring, and evaluating officials doesn't mean that officials as individuals don't try to implement their own personal biases to influence how a particular athlete is treated when it comes to penalties and beyond. Having said all of that, it's a couple of things that I'd like to say about Cam Newton here. Number one, Cam Newton bothers me at times. But he bothers me because I believe he's genuinely a good guy. And I think in an effort to try to be so good and thinking about his brand, which extends beyond the football field, he goes about the business of trying to dance around issues so he addresses them without offending anybody. And there is something to be said about just being real and authentic because it builds and elevates a level of trust. And that is the point that I want, if Cam is watching right now, that is the point that I really, really want him to get from all of this. I want him to understand, because I've spoken to Cam on several occasions in the past, as you know. You understand, I got a lot of love for the brother. My issue with him is that I think it's incredibly important that you don't be fearful of how you're going to be viewed when you believe in your heart of hearts that you're speaking truth. Because if you're too overly concerned about it, then there's going to come a point in time where you really, really, really need to be heard. I didn't say listened to. I said heard. A lot of people don't understand the difference. Listening to is somebody just giving you their ear and allowing you to give them lip service. Being heard is when they literally inhale and comprehend where you are coming from, contextually and otherwise. If Cam Newton isn't careful, Cam Newton is going to be the NFL's version of Dwight Howard. Yeah. Remember Dwight Howard?
Yes.
Dwight Howard got to a point in his career, Max can speak to this. Dwight Howard is one of the best people you will find. At times, people felt he needed to grow up, but he's a good person. The problem is that he cared so much about how people viewed stuff that you got to a point where you couldn't trust
But let's talk about the disconnect.
And Cam got to be careful about that.
Let's talk about the disconnect because that's not the case with Andrew Luck or Dak Prescott. And the difference is, to me, that you have to drink the Kool-Aid. You have to buy into the way of doing things, to the culture of the game, at the quarterback position especially, as the face of a franchise. And I don't think Cam Newton believes the NFL or the football orthodoxy, the received wisdom about how you have to be a quarterback. I don't think he believes it. The celebration, stop me then, all that kind of stuff. Andrew Luck and Dak Prescott, for example, and Russell Wilson and others buy in. They believe it. So when they're asked questions, they can answer truthfully because the truth is coming from a place where they accept the way it's supposed to be according to everyone else. Well, there's no disconnect. Cam doesn't. So he has to constantly watch what he says because he doesn't buy in.
But you're thinking about belief. I'll make it simpler for you. They understand the rules of the game, and what they came in as, they're consistent. So I know what I'm going to get every time I listen to Andrew Luck, every time I listen to Dak Prescott. I see the same person all the time. With Cam, as was the case at times in the past with Dwight Howard of the Atlanta Hawks, formerly of the Lakers and the Houston Rockets and Orlando Magic, those guys, sometimes they sound one way, other times they sound another way. And that diminishes and dissipates the level of trust you have in their words when you feel like they're not being as real and authentic as they could be.
I think the bottom line is control what you can control, and you can't worry about what other people think.
Cam needs to stop. Cam's a good guy and a star.
Tim Duncan never had to worry about what he said because he knew what he thought. What he thought aligned with what we wanted him to think. And when that's not the case and you try to please people, that's when you have that problem.
Panthers, who are last in their division, defeated the Redskins 26-15 on Monday Night Football. Carolina has now beaten Washington 5 straight times. The defending NFC East champs are now third in the division at 7-6-1. They've fallen from a 6th seed to an 8th seed in the NFC. Their playoff chances fell from 53% to 25%, according to 538.com. Here's Jay Gruden.
Yeah, we're disappointed. There's no question. But first off, we were out-coached today. There's no question about that. And then I think they played better than us today. So we got to give credit to the Carolina Panthers. And it's my responsibility to get these guys ready to play. We weren't as ready as I would like to have been. We didn't execute like I would like to have seen. And that falls on my shoulders. But we still have 2 games left to look forward to. And hopefully get a victory against Chicago Saturday.
Stephen A., you've been calling for Rex Ryan's head, so...
Molly, allow me for a second.
Okay, yeah.
Because this was my thought when I was watching the game. I've been hearing nonstop about Rex Ryan's job out of you.
Yeah.
2 seasons, and he's, kind of middle of the pack kind of coach. 15 and 15 in the NFL, that's, average, solid. You don't call it that. And I was wondering, with the playoffs on the line and them rolling over the way they did at home on Monday Night Football, not ready to play, after having gotten shellacked in their only playoff game last year under Jay Gruden, are you calling for Jay Gruden's job today?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Jay Gruden does not deserve to lose his job. And I'm not saying it just because I love his brother, John Gruden, who's our colleague here at ESPN. Actually, John Gruden's a little bit scared to show up on the set. He likes to get on me via satellite, but he hasn't manned up and shown up in studio. I think the weather, he can't take it because he loves Tampa, being in Bristol a little bit too much for him. But that's a different subject for another day. Here's the deal with Jay Gruden. And you're comparing him to Rex Ryan. I'll tell you why I'm not calling for Jay Gruden's job. Well, let me finish with the answer because he's about to get his feelings hurt.
I just like how he set up the question.
Yeah, you try to set up the question. It's all right. I'll deal with you in a second, Molly Wood. Here's the deal, Max Kellerman. Jay Gruden, where were the Washington Redskins last year? What did they finish?
I don't know their record.
9-7.
They won the NFC.
They won the NFC. When you win the NFC, well, hold it. When you win the NFC East. Right, when you win a division, does that mean that you get to the playoffs?
Yes.
So, this is last year, right?
Yes.
And Jay Gruden was in the playoffs last year, right?
What happened when he got there?
Hold on. He was there, right?
Kind of.
When's the last time Rex Ryan was in the playoffs? I'm just saying. In any capacity. division, wild card, whatever the case may be. He hasn't been there since 2010. I keep telling you, my hairline was about here at that time. The man can't go to the playoffs. He's not Jeff Fisher. That much you can say about Rex Ryan. Outside of that, he hasn't gotten it done. I mean, listen, I have nothing against Rex Ryan. I'm actually very fond of Rex Ryan. I genuinely like him as a person. I genuinely like to listen to him, his press conferences. I like his bravado. I like his belief and his faith in his players. I get all of that. But my God, as I explained with my final take yesterday, if everyone gets to keep their job despite the ineptitude that they put on display on an annual basis, where are the opportunities for those on the come up? This is the National Football League. Every single year, we brag about parity. We brag about teams coming out of nowhere that may not have done something last year, but have done something this year. It might take years to build a Super Bowl contender. It does not take years to transform a team into a playoff team. Rex Ryan has been a head coach for 6 years now without making a playoff.
Look
6
at the
consecutive
division.
years.
Look at the division.
Hold on, wait a
The
minute.
Patriots are there.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. The Steelers have gotten into the playoffs as a wild card. Whether it's Kansas City or somebody else, they've gotten in as a wild card.
Jay Gruden.
Are there two
His
wild
record,
cards?
just so you know, for purposes, 20, 25, and 1
Are there
over
not
3
two
years.
wild cards every year?
Yeah.
Yes or no? All right then. All right then. You don't have to win your division to get to the playoffs.
So let me get
you don't
this-
have to
let me
beat the
get this
Patriots to
straight.
get to the playoffs.
Let me get this straight. Just
Come on.
For the record, I don't think
Yes.
Jay Gruden should lose his job.
Right.
I did think Jeff Fisher should have.
Yes.
And he
then,
deserved that. That was
you,
the right
you
thing.
did the occasional brilliance of you. I deeply appreciate it because you agree with me.
Marvin
Every way to
Lewis, I am on the fence about.
On the fence?
Now I
On
will
the
say
fence?
I will say that given the performance where they appeared to quit this year, it may be time to move on from Marvin
Oh,
Lewis.
it may.
I thought you jumped the gun on Marvin Lewis, but okay. Yes.
I was catching a heart attack. Did you just say I jumped the gun?
Wrong sitcom.
I jumped the gun? No. This is not no friend. I know Sam and son. No, Elizabeth are coming home to join you, honey. I know.
That's not you.
Did you just say I jumped the gun?
Yes.
The man has been the head coach in Cincinnati for 14 years.
Yes.
14 years, man.
He had his team ready to make a run last year. The quarterback got hurt.
When Marvin Lewis first started in Cincinnati, you didn't even have facial hair. Are you kidding me? This dude has been there for 14 years.
That's right.
14 years. Not one playoff victory, and I jumped the gun?
Yes.
I jumped the gun.
Yes.
How did I jump the gun?
Because they get to the
How?
Not only did they get to the playoffs, and many teams would have liked a coach like that, but they were ready to make a run. It's not his fault that the quarterback gets hurt going into the playoffs last year. But wait, I want to get to Jay
What
Gruden
about the previous
and
12?
Rex Ryan. They were in the playoffs consistently.
I said
in
playoff
recent
victory.
years.
I said playoff victory.
Jay
Max.
Gruden didn't have a playoff victory.
I just said,
he got waxed.
Max, this is his third year, 14 years.
So let's take it back to Rex Ryan.
Go ahead.
How much equity and how much rope does an AFC championship appearance buy you? Does it give you at least a season or two after that to say this guy is not a bum coach?
He's had 6.
He had 2 AFC championship appearances.
He's had 6 years.
And I think considering 2 AFC championship appearances and the fact that he's in the same division as Bill Belichick, it's not like Jay Gruden where he had a bad Giants defense, a Cowboys team who lost their quarterback pre-Dak Prescott, and an Eagles team that wasn't ready. So you get to the playoffs with 9 wins, but if you're in Bill Belichick's division and you miss the playoffs, yes, a half a dozen years, all times in the AFC East, and you've been to 2 AFC championship games, you should lose your job. My point is not that Jay Gruden should lose his job. He shouldn't. My point is neither should Rex Ryan.
Rex Ryan not only has not made the playoffs since 2010, okay? Obama was in his second year in office.
Not that long.
Okay, 6 years.
Yeah.
He not only has he not been in the playoffs, he hasn't had a winning record since 2010. And you're coming to me and telling me that a man that hasn't had a winning record in 6 years, hasn't made the playoffs in 6 years, is getting a raw deal if he ends up out the door?
How long
What
has he
is
been
the
in
matter
Buffalo?
with you?
How long has he been in Buffalo?
2 years.
2 years.
This is his second year.
Okay.
And he's 15 and 15
So
now.
he's a 500 record
Yep.
in Buffalo over 2 seasons, and you want them
Max.
to act like a dysfunctional franchise and get rid of the coach?
No, what I'm saying to you, Max, is a guy who has never coached before, and this is his first go-round, I understand the notion that a body of evidence doesn't necessarily exist for you to boot him out the door.
Todd Bowles is okay, someone like that.
Of course, he went 10-6 last year. He went 10-6 last year.
When Rex started, he goes to 2 AFC championship games. Then he misses for 4 seasons. Then he gets a new job, goes 500 in 2 seasons, and you want to get rid of him.
And misses
That's a new job.
And misses again. Listen, there is a pattern.
Every team make the playoffs, gotta go.
Is there not a pattern of ineptitude when it comes to Rex Ryan and offenses? Yes or no?
Yes, and the offenses
defense
could be
didn't get
better.
much better
When you make a defensive coordinator, the head
could be
coach, you're expecting a good defensive team.
Excuse me. His defense had 54 sacks before he arrived. 21. It was a 33-point drop.
By the way,
all right,
Buffalo's not an easy assignment.
Listen,
Buffalo's not an easy assignment.
It's not an easy assignment, but their defense was expected to be better than what it was, than what it is with Rex Ryan.
Because the defense is expected to be better, and they're a 500 team over 2 seasons to get rid of the coach.
I wish we had more time.
Molly, here's the bottom line. I'm going to end it with this. Your definition. I swear to goodness, I swear I want a boss like you someday.
You got one. You're welcome.
I'm not. I keep trying to tell you. I keep trying to tell you. We all know who the boss is here. The point is, here's the bottom line. Max Kellerman, you have a license to be mediocre. He's perfectly okay with it. He's perfectly okay with it. I love you, man. I love you. Everybody should love Max Kellerman. I mean, go ahead out there and be mediocre. Be anti-American. Don't be great. Be mediocre, and you're going to be all right with Max. He'll keep you employed. Unbelievable.
Every time you have a team 1 game above 500 in the league, somebody's got to be a game below 500, or it doesn't add up. There will be most teams in the middle that are by definition mediocre.
Guys, I want to get into this play.
Go ahead, Molly.
You're the owner of the Bills.
Why I got to be the one on pace?
You're the owner of the Bills.
The story of the game last night, clearly not the story of today, was the no call on Cam Newton.